The next item on the agenda, HCR 28 by Representative Wright. I saw him. There he is. All right. And the chairman has returned, so we can move a little quicker now because I didn't know the buttons.
Good afternoon, members. Today it's a House Concurrent Resolution related to the, sorry about that, an Article 5 Convention of States related to federal term limits. For those of you who don't know, we passed a similar resolution about an Article 5 convention last year, or perhaps the year before, in the House and the Senate for that matter. I am here on behalf of, or in conjunction with a group called U.S. Term Limits, and I'm happy to answer any questions, but certainly we have people related to that organization be happy to talk about it too. So,
Representative Ivey, do you want to hear the presentation from the other witnesses, or do you want?
Just before that, I got a question right now.
Okay, Representative Ivey.
Mr. Chair, what time are we supposed to adjourn our meeting?
4:30.
4:30.
It's 3 o'clock now. We have an hour and a half.
All right. And now, having heard these debates on Article 5 multiple times, and they can get lengthy, I would like to point out that my bills are still on the agenda. And so just time awareness. I've never asked for a minute rule, and I usually oppose them, but the last committee, my bill was in the middle of its hearing, and it got cut off. So anyway, thanks.
Representative Ivey is not making a motion to limit, but he is reminding everyone that we do have some time-sensitive matters, and thank you for that reminder, Representative Ivey. Representative Farnham, do you? No, that's not out of order. Let me light you up. Hold on one second.
Press a button.
Go ahead, Representative Newell.
I would like to make the motion for the 2-minute rule. Thank you very much.
Is there any objection to adopting the 2-minute rule from this point forward?
No.
Hearing no objection, there will be a 2-minute rule. The way I'm going to implement the 2-minute rule, the witness will have 2 minutes and each member will have 2 minutes. So that's how we will operate this. Representative Farnham, do you have a question for Representative Wright? Okay, Representative Wright, do you want to go ahead and present, or do you want the witnesses to come up?
witnesses happy to let the witnesses come up to answer any questions. I don't know that they have much of a presentation. I think
okay.
We're here to.
I think we're familiar with it. Representative Farnham, I'm going to go ahead and recognize you. Go ahead, Representative Farnham.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to, I think everybody that knows me well knows that I'm very much an advocate of term limits for everybody that is an elected official in this country. And so I thank you for bringing this forward, and at the appropriate time I would move for favorable passage.
Thank you, Rick.
Thank you, Representative Farnham. Now is the appropriate time. I'll go ahead. Well, Mr. Clark, I have a green card that you would like to testify. Would you still like to give testimony?
I can wait, and I'm here mostly to answer questions, but rather than take the committee's time with testimony that I've heard, I'm more than happy to.
We currently don't have any questions, and I just jinxed you. Representative Horton.
I'm sorry, I'm not going to take even 2 minutes. I'm with you, girl. With term limits, we always felt that our votes were term limits. So do you not trust the people to vote correctly? Is that why you support term limits?
Mr. Clark, just state your name and address for the record.
My name is Ken Clark. I'm from Hilton Head, South Carolina. I am a regional director for U.S. term limits. And Mr. Chairman, through you, that's a terrific question. And a lot of people do believe that term limits, or excuse me, elections are in fact term limits. And I do trust the people. The only problem is that the power of incumbency today is so overwhelming that most qualified candidates that would run against an incumbent simply can't raise the money. To get out of the gates, it requires $4 million in a typical race to run against an incumbent congressman. And to give you an example of what I'm talking about, Congress right now has roughly a 13% approval rating. The re-election rate is over 94%. 94%. It is next to impossible to win an election against an incumbent. They have so many advantages. Money, they can send out mailers to their district on the taxpayer dime over and over and over again. And it's really the only way to get rid of an existing member of Congress is through death or indictment.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Clark.
Stay within my 2-minute rule.
Thank you, Representative Horton. Representative Ivy.
Just to be clear, this is a request for a convention to discuss term limits. It doesn't. You're not suggesting a prescription for what that would look like as far as how many terms in office. Correct?
That's exactly right.
Right now, just for the record, I don't like term limits as at the local level, and I had a long conversation with one of the gentlemen who's a advocate for Article 5 term limits for the Congress. He agreed that it's a different issue at the local level because you have more access and there's more accountability there. At the federal level, I signed the pledge for a couple reasons. One, it could be that there's a practical term limits. We all know it takes a while to kind of even get up to speed before you can become do your job very well. And so Congress, I can imagine that's compounded. So I think there may be some solution to be had. It's not going to be an easy debate if we ever get there, but it could be that the will of that majority of the convention can come up with something that 3/4 of the states have to ratify. So,
thank you, Representative Ivy. We also have green cards and support from Mr. Ken Clark, U.S. term limits, and Mr. Ryan Haney, U.S. term limits. I have a question for Representative Duplessis.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And thank you, Representative Wright, for the discussion. I did step out briefly. I can kind of sense the general, feel in the committee room. So I have an idea of, where things might be headed. But I just wanted to use the opportunity to ask the question. If it was already addressed, I apologize. I think we all can agree if there's someone who needs to be taken out, they need to be taken out. But what about the communities or the districts when somebody's actually delivering and doing a good job for their communities? They've worked, they've done it, they've built the relationships, they've got the senior status, they know how to deliver. I mean, I just want to hear your perspective on that aspect of it. Like when you got somebody that's really getting it done for their district and is doing what they're supposed to be doing, and now we reward them with a thank you very much, but your services are no longer needed type of message.
I'll tell you my perspective on it, and then let Mr. Clark speak for U.S. term limits. There are a lot of smart people in my House district that could do my job, do this job. It's the same thing at the federal level. There are people, I love my congressman right now. I could keep him there forever as far as I'm concerned. But I think like a lot of people across the country, you love your congressman, but you don't like the mixture that's in D.C. I feel personally that our institutions perform better when there's a regular mixture of new blood coming in, new thoughts, new things like that. Certainly the power of incumbency is a big deal. And so I agree with what Mr. Clark said, but I think there's more to it than that. When you look at the Constitution, it's essentially about limitation of power. And so certainly there are congressmen out there that people love and they've done a great job for their district. But it's hard for me to believe that there's not some people that are in that district that couldn't do the same thing for them. I think we have a tendency to kind of think some people in politics are so good at what they do, and maybe they are, but I think there's a lot of people in our districts that could do this job just like we do, and that at the end of the day, I just say maybe they're doing a real good job, maybe somebody else could have done it. So there you go. Sorry, Mr. Clark.
Well, and to address that, you've got to look at, and I'll address your issue as far as seniority is concerned. There are a lot of small states that don't have a lot of ability to influence in Washington, D.C. because their delegation is smaller. So when they have a member of Congress that is able to stay there and finally reach to become a chairman of a committee, what have you, ultimately they're going to be gone, and that state then starts at ground zero again, and they have to work their way up again. Every state with term limits on Congress, every state would start on a level playing field. They would all have the same advantage. People would become leaders in their parties, in their chambers, in their houses based on merit as opposed to quote unquote seniority. And the way it is now, you become a leader of your party based on how much money you can raise. And it doesn't matter which party it is, but that's how you become leadership in Washington, D.C. It's based on green. It's based on money. It's not based on merit. That's how you advance in Washington, D.C. With limiting the terms of the members of Congress, everybody would be at the same level playing field. New York, Louisiana, Mississippi, California would all have the same ability to get their members as leadership based on merit.
Thank you for answering my questions.
Thank you. Representative Horton, do you have another question? You have about 15 seconds left of your 2 minutes.
Has this ever been done before? Have we ever adjusted or opened the Constitution up for this
An
reason
Article
before?
5 convention, no.
Okay,
But there's a growing movement to do it. I don't know how many states have passed. I know there's been at least 3 states that have passed this resolution, and I know the other Article 5 effort, I think there's a lot more than 3 that have passed that too. I could be wrong, but.
Well, I would like to address that. We're not opening up the Constitution in any way, shape, or form. This is a single subject issue. Okay, this is a single subject, term limits on Congress. We need to get 34 states to pass the exact same resolution with the exact same language. When that happens, all 50 states will converge and they will be able to talk about one subject and one subject only. And to give you an example why I know that that is in fact and not supposition, does anybody know how many different Article 5 resolutions have been passed by the states to date? It's over 400. It's over 400 different Article 5 resolutions, yet there has never been an amendments proposing convention of the states. Why? Because of the language in those resolutions does not match. And then there's a lot of people that talk about the idea that once they get to convention, they could do whatever they want. Not true. You, the House and Senate of the state of Mississippi, or excuse me, state of Louisiana, sorry about that. So bad.
No offense. No offense.
You, as members, will decide who your delegates to that convention will be. You will also write their commission, which is their authority. You will give them the authority that they can exercise at that convention. If they decide they want to try to go beyond that authority, in Tennessee, that's a Class 6 felony. They can go to jail for trying to do that. You have the power to recall that person, okay? And the idea that anything can be proposed, it would be like a member of this committee, Representative Carter, you deciding to put an amendment on this resolution for library funding in your district. Nobody here would even consider such a thing. The same is true with that convention. The states have had state conventions over 40 different times. 40 different times in our histories. The states themselves have had amendment conventions over 230 times, amending their own state conventions. Not a single instance has that ever gotten out of control.
Let's move on. Representative Ivey?
Thank you.
Thank you. First of all, we'll forgive you for the Mississippi
And I'm so
thing.
sorry about
But if it was Alabama, then
Yeah.
you would be in contempt. So I also want to point out, besides all those complexities, you also have to ratify whatever comes out. I mean, this is really a mission impossible task, because to get the entire diversity of the United States and all of its political pushes and pulls, it's a challenge. So whatever would come out that could be agreed upon would be so well vetted. I mean, it would be obvious. And so there's no risk that something's going to accidentally, and it's going to be so problematic. It's why it's never been done. It's a tall order. So, and I'm a above all approach. There's a lot of issues we can address. Congress is never going to get to it, and it's okay. We can continue to make these efforts, and I'll continue to support them. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Ivey. That clears the board. There is a motion to report House Concurrent Resolution 28 favorable by Representative Farnham. Is there an objection? Hearing no objection, House Concurrent Resolution 28 will be reported favorable. Thank you.